sometimes our CPS caseworkers can send us actual medical documents that we can use. If it's something specifically from a pediatrician or a dentist, we can read that information, take that information and put that into our reports. But if it's just a conversation that we're having with, say, the caregiver, we just want to make sure that we're hearing it firsthand from a medical provider. Our health passports, I just want to remind everyone that if you are ever in need, if you're ever in need of to get your medical update or medical advocacy done for the month, you can always reach out to your supervisor and ask for the health passport. Kelly is the only supervisor that specifically can go in and get the health passports. So if it's easier for you guys to dodge your supervisor, just go straight to Kelly. Feel free to do that. I know that Tony Sykes usually will go straight to Kelly to ask. There's no right or wrong. Either way, either one.
You weren't encouraging us to pass you.
Whichever one's easiest for you. I always just forward the email that y'all send me to Kelly, and she's really fast at getting those out.
Yeah.
And lastly, from a pediatrician, if we're talking to the pediatricians, we can put that in our court report for an update to the court. But again, we just want to make sure that we're not just taking someone's word for it that's not a medical professional. This also goes along with contact logs. It's not medical advocacy if you're not hearing it from a medical professional. If you're talking to the caregiver about their doctor's visit, that's great. I'm glad you're having communication with the caseworker or with the caregiver. But again, we just want to make sure that we're hearing that from a medical professional or the health passport.
Elaine, I have a question.
Yes.
So, if we are getting that information from the caregiver, then is it important for us to also go seek that information from the pediatrician or whatever, so that we can then include it?
Yes, most definitely. So if you have a teen, for example, and they're saying that, oh, she was prescribed birth control from the doctor 2 weeks ago. We just want to make sure that that is in fact true, that she was prescribed birth control, and that it was filled and picked up. And in the health passport, sometimes it takes a little bit to update. And again, we don't want to rely on the health passport for every medical update, but we can call the doctor and see what was prescribed, when it was prescribed, and then we can double check with the health passport. Do you know how long it takes to update the health passport? I've seen it be really quick, and then I've seen it take a little bit longer, but just to make sure that, yes, they were prescribed it on this day, and it was filled. I have a case where there was such back and forth with the CPS caseworker if she was given the birth control shot, and the caseworker told me that yes, she was given the birth control shot. Come to find out, she wasn't. So things like that happen, and just a miscommunication. So if you're getting like documentation from the doctor through your CPS caseworker, that is okay. That counts, right? Okay. Yes. Okay, our number 5 mistake is going to be adding general content updates to the concerns section. The concerns section should just state the concerns. talk about your primary concerns, and later in the other sections, we can elaborate on why we have these concerns. Sometimes I have advocates write, I am concerned about the mother's sobriety. I went on a visit on May 16th and observed the mother acting high, was out of it, blah, blah, blah. We would want to state in the concerns that, we're concerned with the mother's sobriety, and then down in the visitation updates, we can talk about what exactly we saw and witnessed when we witnessed the visitation. We can go into detail there. We just want the concern section to be a quick and easy section for the judge to read. We hope that the judges read every word of our court report, and we hope the lawyers read every word of our court report, but sometimes, they're in a hurry, or sometimes they just go straight to the concerns and read it. We just want it to be quick and easy for them. I don't know if Rosa or Rachel, if you have any examples of any other things that people put in their concerns.
Sometimes it's a concern about educational stuff, and they'll talk about her grades and stuff, but there's also there's a concern that she needs an art and it's not being set up. I will say that in Walker County, the judge does read our court reports, and I've seen Charles, who was here earlier, you can see him reading them and making sure that he's highlighted and making sure he read your concerns, and will ask if there's anything else. So I can't speak for the other counties, but people are reading them. They are important, so don't feel like you're wasting your time. They
Right.
are useful.
Do we have any concerns about maybe the caseworker overanalyzing a situation?
In your court report,
Yeah. I come from a background in hospitals, so I've got difficult. So that's why I'm asking.
I guess what do you,
Well, I mean,
Just-
like you were saying, you observed a mother act high. That's an accusation.
Right. I
It
think
needs
I
to
would,
be an observable.
Okay. The mother was having balance problems and.
or couldn't stay awake.
Yeah,
or-
okay,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
That's why can we over?
Maybe stating it more of,
Yeah.
she was acting differently than I've ever seen.
Correct, yeah, okay, I got that. Okay.
Falling asleep
Okay.
while holding the baby.
But under the concern section, you would say, Costa's primary concern at this time is
Right.
mother's sobriety.
Correct.
Okay.
That's just, and that's just stating a
Right,
personal
and then-
concern.
And then
why?
the person reading it can go, know that our concern is about visitation, and go to the visitation section, and we can elaborate
Yeah, Yeah.
about, did the mother stay for the whole visit?
Right.
Was she in a hurry to leave?
fall asleep in the middle.
Right. Did she cut it short? Did she seem, rushed or, yes,
Yeah.
disinterested,
Yeah.
things like
Okay.
that.
I just make sure.
Okay. Our number 4 mistake is addressing parties by their first names or not clarifying relationships. We obviously talk to, some advocates talk to parents more than others, and it can be on a first name basis. Now, in our first court report, we want to say, for example, the mother's first and last name, just so that all parties are aware of the mother's first and last name. And then, like this example has, after her name, in commas, put the child's mother. Our lawyers and the judge hears and has several cases, and sometimes they might have, in several different counties. So we just want to give them a quick little reminder of who we're talking about, and what their name is. In future references, we want to address them as Mr., Miss, Mrs., just to be more formal. And again, clarifying the relationship to the child.
So do you have to say Mrs. Smith, child's mother, or could I just say child's mother?
I think it's,
Yeah, I usually am okay with that when I
Yes.
say
Saying
it.
child's mother,
Yeah, or
that's
the
the way.
mother, child's mother.
yes,
yeah.
or if, I think specifically when I see court reports that say, we'll just use Amanda as the mother's names. Amanda came to the visitation,
Yeah.
and she was falling asleep. We just want to make sure that the person reading this knows that we're talking about the mother, because we could be talking about this, they might think we're talking about the CPS caseworker, they might think we're talking about just an observer. We just want to be very forward with who we meet.
Sorry, sometimes in some cases, like, the child is named after the father. So, you know, you're talking about Joe and then Joe, so it can get really confusing. I had a case like that.
Okay, we do have one exception. You don't have to refer to the children as, you know, Miss Montana or Miss Caitlin. You can refer to the children as their names.
As their first name?
Yes.
Is it better to say Joe, or is it better to say the child?
If you have multiple children, it can get confusing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think when you have one child, it's more than appropriate to say the child
Yeah.
or even Joe.
Right.
But it does get hairy when we have 4, 5, 6 children. And some of the children might have very similar names. So I have a child in one of my cases that their name, we'll just say is James. They go by JJ. I always in the court report put their government name or their name that CPS uses when identifying them. Because sometimes the judge won't know that they have a nickname, or the judge won't know that he's a junior, so we call him Junior. I always go by their first name.
Would it be okay to put in parentheses a nickname, or would that?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I just don't think that we should be using it throughout the court report. Just to be, just so there's no confusion. Okay, our number 3 mistake is going to be confusing placement details with visitation observations. So, a lot of our CASAs, and I see where this comes from, because we call our visits to the children visits. So a lot of the times, our CASAs will talk about their visit in visitation observations. Visitation observations is specifically a place to talk about if you observe a sibling visit with the children, and you want to talk about how the siblings interacted with each other. If you observed a visit with, if it's a C of E case and they visited with a past teacher and you observed that visit, maybe we can talk about that in there. And specific, most importantly, parent visits. I'm trying to think. Have you ever monitored or observed a parent visit?
In several cases, we'd have to go to like a CPS center and
Yes.
go in the room and watch the parents visit, like
Right,
once a
and
week.
you might have some concerns after that observation, or you might have some praises that you want the judge to know. So, visitation observations is specifically to talk about, the child visiting with, their mother, their father, siblings, and sometimes it could be other family members that are, in the picture, but most of the time it's those 3.
Well, like on the ones I had, like sometimes grandma would bring the parent And the CPS caseworkers that I would be there with would only like let the grandparent come in for like the last 5 minutes.
Right.
Or something like that, instead of being, because that's for the mother and the father to be, so they'd only let the grandparent come in for like the last 5 minutes.
And then I know some people in this room have had adoption cases. So let's just say, for example, Peter and Rhonda, if you ever watched a visit, a pre-placement visit to a child in their potential adoptive home, we could talk about that in visitation to observations. But again, we just have to be very clear on who we're talking about. Yes?
Okay, the case I have now, the mother has unlimited visitation in the home, and she has a certain number of hours she can take the child out. The father still has supervised visitation. I visited today, the mother was there. It wasn't a specific mother's visiting, she was just there.
Right.
Because she is often. Would that fall under visitation observations?
I think it could, I think it most definitely does, and especially if you noticed any, if you had any concerns while you were there, you could put that in the visitation observation section. And then I would also put in there that you were on your regular monthly visit to the child, or to the placement's home. And while you were there, the mother was doing one of her, does she have to be supervised?
No.
You could just say the mother was at the home during this visit and I witnessed A, B, and C. And in visitation observations, even, I tell my advocates, even if you haven't observed a visit, I would still put what the current visitation plan is. So you could say, I have no updates at this time, but currently Montana is getting 3 hours weekly visits supervised, or with her mother, supervised by the grandmother. Just so that the judge has a little reminder, the lawyers have a little reminder, and then they can just see that you just don't have any updates at this time. I do think it is very beneficial to observe visits if possible, just so that you can have some input if ever asked by the judge or lawyers.
See, I've asked I've actually told my CPS that I do, because I've done it before with all the other cases, and that I'm willing to do it if she ever, but she's like, well, due to COVID, they're not allowing anyone to do it yet here in Huntsville. So.
In the CPS office or just in general?
That's what Katie was said, that they're, with COVID right now, they're not asking anyone else to come in. I was like, okay. So.
But yeah, and see, yeah, I've done it all through COVID. You know, you gotta wear a mask in there, but I've been to.
Yeah, see, I did it up until.
And Judge James has been a little bit, or I'd say Walker County in general has just been a little bit more strict with, during COVID. Trinity County, for example, they were still allowing parents to come to the CPS office to visit with their children, where I know Walker County wasn't doing that at all, right?
Yeah, there's been almost no parent-child visits. Almost everything's been virtual. One of your cases is the only cases that actually has.
Yeah, they have it, but they,
50 counties.
they do one of them at a rehab facility, and the other one they drive to Conroe.
Just a friendly reminder, we changed our policy within the last year or so about supervising visits. We've had instances where advocates have offered to be the person that is supervising these visits. We just want to make sure that you're never solely, if it's like at a park, we never want you guys to be the sole supervisors, just for your safety. And we've had instances where an advocate, something happened and she didn't know who to call, or.
So what happened was, it was a while back, which is part of why we had to come up with edit our policy is, you know, the family was great, the kids were great, we were working towards reunification, we didn't think it was a big deal so that the parents could get more time with their dad. to supervise the visit at a park. Well, CPS dropped him off, the advocate was there, they were having a great visit, then it started raining. Well, Dad's transportation is not necessarily approved to transport the kids. The CPS transporter was long gone, and we're not allowed to transport the kids.
So it puts us in a very
So
sticky
we had
situation.
to try and get CPS on the phone on a weekend, and they had to try and work to approve. They had to work to approve Dad's transporter to get them to a McDonald's so they could get out of the rain. So that's the tricky part when it says y'all alone, like at a park, like, that's not, probably gonna happen every single time, but then, say you try and take them and you get in an accident, taking them out of the rain, then say Dad wants to sue you because little Lila's arm got broken or something, then it just spirals, so that's why that policy is there.
We all call that.
I will say that you can, if it's at a CPS office on a weekday and there's other workers there, but you are the sole supervisor, that's okay, because there are other professionals around. And it's not that we don't trust y'all, we just want y'all to be safe and protected, and things like that. And just a little note here, again, CASAs do not have visitation, we visit the children. So that's just a little reminder, we want to put all of our details about our visits with the children in the placement details. We can go on and on in the placement details about how a child was able to read a book to me, whereas they weren't ever able to do that before. We just don't want to put that in the visitation section. Okay, and just a little review from 10 to 3. Our number 10 mistake was forgetting the footer.
Dang, footer hits you every time.
It does.
Our number 9 mistake was incorrect address block. Number 8 was not reviewing the standing content. So that would just be, going from your old court report. Some things might have changed. We just want to make sure that we're reviewing those things. Deleting sections. Reporting hearsay for number 6. Number 5, general updates reported as concerns. Number 4, improperly addressing parties. Number 3, misreporting visit and visitation observations. Number 2 mistake is going to be submitting court reports late.
That's only the number 2 mistake.
Yeah, could have been 10.
The footer. I should have been 10. Okay, so just a friendly reminder that court reports are due 10 days prior to the hearing. So I asked our supervisors just specifically about that 10-day rule. I was a little confused between Rachel and I. But I think Rachel, Kelly, and I's rule is 10 days, but if that 10th day falls on a Saturday, we'll bump it to Friday that the court report is due. So if the court report 10 days is on a Sunday, I'll bump it to Friday.
Oh, Friday, always go back, never go over 10.
I always go forward.
Forward?
So sometimes it might
Back.
be 11
Backwards.
days.
You go back.
I go back.
Back, okay.
I'd rather have
never over.
more time than not enough time.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because y'all have to read them and make sure they're correct and send them back to us. And
Yes.
I know you only have mine to deal with.
And mine.
No one ever walks in the office, the phone never rings.
Right.
So.
Why would it?
What do you-
And then Rosa does 10 10 business days. So,
Oh.
So you got it lucky.
I like that. I think that's a good idea.
business days.
It's just so it doesn't get
It's
confusing.
That's pretty smart. Who knows? I might change mine. No, I'm kidding. I'll let you guys
New
know.
policy coming soon.
And again, it's just because we have to review them, and
Send them
sometimes,
back, redo them,
yes. But if they're perfect, like Rhonda's,
whatever.
or be honest,
What are you doing next week?
Yeah. We're helping you work on your case notes.
Good,
um,
good answer.
we need time to review them. Sometimes, I know, especially Walker County, they only have one court date a month. So when they have court, there is several cases on their docket. So they have multiple people turning in court reports. We just want to make sure that we give everyone enough time to review them, send them back for corrections, maybe correct them a little more if needed, and e-file them. Okay, so for example, and like I said, this is a little different between each supervisor, but let's just say your court hearing is on the 26th. So this would be,
Oh, no.
this
On
one,
Sunday.
if 10 days, if you count every day, would fall on a Sunday.
So we'd be doing that Friday?
So what I would
Prior?
do is I bump it, I would rather have more time
Right,
than not
so
enough time.
Friday,
So I would bump it to
Friday the 12th?
Friday or
Friday the
14th.
14th.
But if you had Rosa, it'd be the 12th.
But if you had Rosa, you would have,
The 12th, yeah.
1, 2,
What?
yep, the
Do
12th.
the Wednesday before anyway.
So it's just a few days here.
That's the only way I can remember.
And again, these dates, the date of your court hearing and the date that your court report is due will always be an optimum. I send mid-month reminders, and in those mid-month reminders, I put when your next court report will be due and when your next court hearing will be. And then we also came up with a policy that if you had court, let's just say, I'll just use for example Kelly, she's had crazy court schedule lately. Let's say she had court on Monday and a court report was due. Let's say the judge heard that hearing on Monday and is wanting to hear it again the following Monday. We would not ask for another court report unless something major came up. I think we set the 45-day rule. So if you have court, if you had court within 45 days, you do not need a court report. And if you don't need a court report for your court hearing, I just won't put a court report date in Optima.
Unless there's a major update.
Unless you feel like there's a major update, but a lot of times I'll call you and say, hey, we had an issue 2 days after court about visitation. We need to update the court, and so we get together, write a court report, hopefully e-file it in enough time so that the judge could see. A lot of the times they're not.
You better learn how to do
Reschedule.
this because you know who's gonna be calling you. Come on, Lolo.
And you can always come up here to do your court reports too.
Oh, yeah, I'll be here. I'll be here.
Yeah, I will, and even if Rachel was ever busy, let's just say she was jam-packed with court, jam-packed with FGCs, PCs, and Gigi needed to come in to do a court report, any of us would be more than willing to help. And sit down with you and talk about it, all those things. And even if it's every time,
Yeah, don't feel bad.
even if it's every time that you feel more comfortable coming up here to do your court report, please do it.
Yeah.
Plus we love seeing your guys' faces, so.
I've had an advocate who's been a COSTA for 3 or more years and almost always does her court report up here with me anyway. Like, she can do it by herself. I have full faith in her, but she just prefers to do it that way, and that's okay. And it doesn't bother us to have y'all here. Like, we enjoy getting to.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for, to help and support you. So if it makes you feel better to come in to do your court report every time, please do it, because we'll set up a time, or even if it's, you just drop in, we're more than happy to help you.
Or come in on Mondays for a staff advocate lunch.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, so, we always try to e-file our court reports a week before court. So that's why we ask for it, 10 days in advance of the court hearing. We obviously want to give the supervisors time to read the court reports, edit them, and then we also want to give the court enough time for us to e-file them, accept the e-file. I don't know how long it takes y'all's court to accept the e-file, but in Trinity County, it takes like a day or two. So I just want to make sure that everyone has a court report in time. Now, I understand that there are some instances where, you know, life happens, and maybe the supervisors have sometimes e-filed the court report on the 6th, you know, instead of a week, 6 days before the court hearing. But we just want to make sure that we are giving all parties enough time to read our court reports, and for it to be ready for court. So again, we finalize and clarify our content, and we hope and try our best to have it e-filed a week before court.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, my child's attorney, if she wanted a copy of the court report, she could just go help herself, right?
So, the way e-file works, each case has its own, I wanna say like not account, but little profile on e-file. And it will have each attorney's email address, and so once you e-file something and it's accepted, it will be sent to all those parties.
Oh, how nice.
So,
Control your
It is very nice.
enthusiasm.
Because
But
the
there
last
are-
time also, we had to manually email them to all of the parties after they were
Yeah.
proposed.
and
That's really cool.
then, for example, CPS, they e-file their affidavits, family group conference, family plans. And so once that is e-filed, CASA gets that, and we put it in our document section in Optum.
The first time I found that out, I went to court, and as I'm walking up to court, the mother, who I had said some really harsh things about in my court report, that I was fixing to face the judge and tell, she was sitting on the step with it going, like she had a copy of my report, her attorney had printed it and gave it to her, and I was like,
And I will say, the court
Yeah,
report
it's
is
horrible.
public record.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
anyone can
nice.
ask for the court reports and get them.
So the mother, anybody can just,
The attorney can print it and hand it to
and,
whoever.
oh my.